Good morning, class. In less than 1 week's time, the popular vote for the election of the President of the United States of America will take place. And notwithstanding the anticipated manipulations, fraud, election tampering, and outright sabotage of the voting process, the Vox Populi, the voice of the people, will be heard. At this late stage, there is very little else which can be showcased to you regarding this election and everything which hangs in the balance. At this point, there is little else to do but review. Before doing so, I shall address a question which may well be posed by either side of this political quandary. What about the other candidates? Why is it that this countdown to the election is only focused upon this incumbent and the ousting from office thereof? This question is simplistically engaged. As reckless, as dismissive as it may seem, there is no need even to consider the Democratic candidate or any of the third-party contenders, because at this juncture, virtually any other candidate will suffice as an immeasurable improvement upon that which has been inflicted upon all of you for the past 4 years. It is an established imperative that the popular vote go to anyone but this incumbent. And even then, even should the will of the people majoritively, outstandingly defeat the re-election of this incumbent, I must regretfully remind you that the deciding vote will still belong to that much lambasted, highly questionable institution, the Electoral College. Still in all, though, should that whining, peevish, petulant voice of this incumbent's supporters persist in demanding an answer to the foregoing question as to why we are not raking these other candidates over the coals of scrutiny and criticism, why we only seem to be showcasing the foibles and flaws of their celebrated champion, well, the answer is simple. There is very little point in our discussing anyone else, since these selfsame supporters have made it so abundantly clear that their brainless heads are rammed so far up their collective posteriors as to render them unable to conceive of voting for anyone else. And that is why we are left to the task of continuing to expose them to the truths about who and what this incumbent really is. That is why we must go right on defrauding the glitz and the hype surrounding him by yanking away this illusion of grandeur in order to be able to point at this specimen and say, that's who this guy is. Big business and the jet-set elite have made it quite clear that they do not care. But to you of the working class, to you of the blue-collar strata, these insights are inescapable. We are not presenting these truths to the merchants of Wall Street, but to the shoppers of Walmart. How can you have been so blind? Do you remember that time that you were next in line for a promotion at work and the boss decided to give the job to his nephew instead? That boss, that's who this guy is. Do you remember that time you were standing in line all day down at the DMV and that guy in the suit cut in front of you in line, and the DMV clerk was perfectly fine with that? That suit, that's who this guy is. Remember that other time that you were standing in line with your whole family down at the movies, waiting to see the next Fast and the Furious, and in came strolling that upper-class family, who took one look at how long that line was, waved an usher over, slipped him a few bucks, and then that usher ushered them right to the head of the line? That's who this guy is. Remember that time at the all-you-can-eat buffet, when you were sitting next to that family that heaped their plates with mountains of food, hardly ate any of it at all, then got up to leave, with most of that food dumped out onto the table or spilling over onto the floor, and when someone went to call them out on it, the fat-faced father blandly said, "I paid for all that food. I can do whatever I want with it." That's who this guy is. Remember that time that you were trying to take a leak in the men's room, and the jerk a few urinals down finishes up, for once actually decides to wash his hands, pulls a paper towel out of the dispenser, dries his hands, and then, when he intentionally crumples up that paper towel and throws it on the floor, and you go to confront him about cleaning up after himself, looks at you, shrugs, and says, "That's what the janitor's for." That's who this guy is. Remember the football coach from Varsity Blues? That's who this guy is. Do you remember the scandal in the small town where the relative of the local rich fat cat big shot sexually assaulted the daughter of the humble mill worker or coal miner or field hand, and how the big shot showed up at their house, smoothly holding up that great big wad of cash money, firmly suggesting that they should forget about the whole thing? Do you remember that? But do you moreover remember how, steeped in shame, with tears in their eyes, sinking in their own poverty, do you remember how, even in the face of such demoralizing indecency, how the girl's parents wordlessly took the money and quietly shut the door? Do you remember that? That's who this guy is. That's what this guy does. Whether literally, metaphorically, or even vicariously through the actions of rich and powerful associates who he has condoned, if not outrightly collaborated with, this is what this guy has been doing to all of you all along. You see, my dear American proletariat, your incumbent is a guy who long since came to view this country, if not the entire world, through the eyes of Mr. Monopoly, who came to view the whole thing as one colossal real estate game of monopoly. He then fooled himself into believing that by buying and bankrupting Boardwalk and Park Place, he had somehow won the game. And then, just like Alexander the Great wept at having no more empires to conquer, he became bored. And he decided that winning at Monopoly was not enough. Oh no, not when he could take it that final step and own the entire board by assuming control of it. Because let me tell you that when you become the President of the United States of America, when you trade in your play money and your silver thimble, or your silver top hat, or your silver spoon for the keys to that ultimate hotel, the White House, when you trade in your silver race car and Air Force One becomes your new private limousine, when you become the presumptive president for what is still touted to be the greatest, most powerful nation on earth, you come to feel as if all of America, as if all of those railroads, as if all of those public utilities, as if every house and every business, every mall, every store, and more to the point, as if every single player belongs to you. You feel as if you own all of it. And in owning the entire Monopoly board, you now feel as though you are ready to expand, to all of the king's horses and all of the king's men, which Stratego, Battleship, and Risk now place at your command. And having bought, having paid for, and as such in your eyes having won this ultimate game, you now become the ultimate winner in a world which by contrast must amount to a bunch of losers. Having turned this all into a game and then having trumped every other player, you can now at your leisure walk away when all is said and done by gloating and smugly declaring, "Game over." That's who this guy is. What's this? We still have some solid diehards out there clinging to their support, refuting everything which we have covered by insisting, well, gee whiz, you're just focusing on the negative side of our guy. Why, to listen to you, it's like everything he does is wrong. It's like he can't do anything right in your perspective. It's like, no matter what, our guy can't win. Yes, we finally have achieved a meeting of the minds. We finally agree on something. For once, you are right. No matter what he does, he can't win. He must not win. Class dismissed.